Hey, still me, man. I just got sexually molested. I'm semen all over me. Government's a fucking bitch. I sit here in bed, getting raped. Government wants my body swollen as fuck inside my brain, fucked up. I'm inflamed. I get high CK in my blood, too. I get high C-reactive protein. That's from radiation beating my body up 24/7. Point of one of my last videos just now, I want to talk about Chris Walker and the little punk faggot, David Anderson, and the conspiracies at the state hospital against every patient. Well, in my case, it goes a step further, is that they had surveillance there that would verify each thing because it was watching the staff do these things. That's the cool thing about the space capability. The government has the ability to watch everything as it's happening. And they actually watch the conspiracy go down. And the technology has been designed to actually be able to uncover conspiracies. And they could decode brainwaves. They're actually secretly watching the staff set people up. There's no use of this technology to even uncover conspiracies. It's all about covering these things up. So, you can commit the ultimate crime with surveillance. You can do whatever. It's all in the state's interest and benefits, man. They can then do whatever the fuck they ever wanted to do, and nobody can stop them. It's the most high-end crime you got going on today. And at that fucking facility is where this shit's been going on for a long time. And I'm not the first fucking time this has ever happened. Whatever goes on there, I don't even know the full extent of. I don't know how many other people have been victimized, because nobody's ever investigated that place. As you could tell from the U.S. Department of Justice reports, they did not actually acknowledge that anyone had been deliberately abused. And they swept all that under the rug up. But my case is a good example. And there's patients who gladly have been waiting. They've really wanted to come out about this forever. DOJ didn't put any of that in their fucking reports. There's so many examples of patients being chronically abused, physically abused, and neglected on purpose. None of that's in there. But what is in there are bullshit examples that staff members would, examples of them covering abuse up. But it doesn't really say that. It says, usually it's wrapped up in some failure to provide proper care type bullshit. And that's not what's really happening in the facility. They don't provide proper care, it's true, but they also physically, deliberately abuse people and cover it up, right? And then you have people who never get out for 20 fucking years because of these conspiracies against them. And the fact that, okay, what else do you got? You have, you might have sexual abuse that gets covered up. I mean, you have, my case was right there happening as the DOJ was there. Surveillance. They're watching Bonnie Tucker drive by the hospital. She's flashing her tits. She's seeing the staff let me get beat up. They're watching Gino. They're helping with the surveillance operation against Gino and David and all the other patients. They're seeing all this shit. And then they're covertly communicating crap back to the staff using mind-invasive technologies. This was also a high-tech experiment, or something the staff had access to be able to spy and then communicate in secret with their handlers, which was the DOJ. The DOJ was in full control of that hospital, and that's one of the things they don't want people to know. I'm talking about the U.S. DOJ. All the time they were there. So, they were collaborators on this whole fucking thing. And that's why none of the serious shit's in the DOJ reports. They wanted the staff to look good. Still, they're like, oh, the staff were so accommodating. Oh, yeah, they fucking were. Because nobody was going to get prosecuted for anything that was found. There were so many things that were known And that's the cool thing with this technology is they knew that when they were spying on me, there's a few things you could do to research this if you want to find out. Like, they were getting ideas of what to investigate when I was there. They, but they were also trying to push out people who were supportive of me. So when they found out that certain people were supportive of me, like a teacher or worked at the school there for kids, right? For underage 21 people. She wasn't that supportive, I guess, but they had heard that, I believed she wasn't no child left behind compliant. And there's also things about how I got to the hospital, how, people didn't do the right, they weren't doing the right things they didn't properly research my education history, my IPs, all this other bullshit, and they make you sign off on all your rights so you don't get a traditional high school education. Well, I don't know what was happening, and I remember saying, hey, I should research if I have the ability to sue over this. Anyway, that was something I thought, and she had me compile all the schools I went to when I was younger because they fucked me over when I was younger. Then all of a sudden, boom, she's getting hammered with an investigation, and this was just private conversation between me and her mostly on just the schools when I was younger, and then me in secret thinking some of these things and trying to piece together the evidence. And I'm being spied on while I'm doing this. She has state people calling her. I actually go over there and I catch that she says, oh, no, I am no child left behind compliant. Well, there were people trying to get her fired and different things. And I don't know why. But this all happened by October 2007. That is fucking crazy. Then she turns against me and is helping them spy on me after that, because she ends up getting some help with all this shit. And she calls me a little shit over this in secret. She's like, she knows that all this is happening because of me, and I'm like, I didn't really know how it was happening because it's all done secretly. Anything that was happening was being done with this covert surveillance. There was no face-to-face interviews, nothing. So how did all this get kicked up? I don't really know. But people found the dirt out, and then they helped her keep her job, and then they also maybe even tried to have her fired at first. I'm not sure the whole deal because I wasn't involved in any of it. But it was something you can look into, like how did they get the idea to open up this investigation into Helen Macy? Requested old school at the state hospital. And well, they also knew that I was innocent. I was a really interesting case because, you had the Bonnie Tucker stuff and the lack of liability insurance and the conspiracy that they had uncovered. And that was one of the things they had discovered with this surveillance. And this is why the staff say in May 2008, they say that somebody was communicating with the staff on the floor around the time they say. The staff say this on camera. They think that the state lacks liability insurance, and that's why this all was done before. And they're actually talking about Bonnie Tucker scandal and that being covered up, my case being hidden. That's why my case was hidden, because they were actually able to discover all the facts using the surveillance stuff. So they knew that this was all true, and this would leak. This would be everybody together. This would be DAs who were involved prosecuting Bonnie Tucker, covering up my case. This would be all the doctors, superintendents at the hospital, administrators, floor staff. This would be every fucking buddy. To the governor's office, to the Department of Human Resources. Everybody knew me, too. Everyone knew this crap was happening at the hospital. And then they were covering this shit up. I would get blamed for it. If I was calling around for help later, I would get hung up on. People knew me. They'd call me liars. They would act like they heard. Well, if I would be accusing Deborah Howard at the hospital of crime, that she's covering this up and doing different things. And then the operator at DHS knew about this and then would hang up on me based, she says, well, no, I think you're the one lying, actually. I've been told that. That's the type of thing that I'd put up with. And then there were a lot of things like that. That is exactly what happened. So there was surveillance, and I would get hooked up to the covert communication shit where they started using the technology to communicate shit with me, tricking me, mind controlling me, and trying to bring me some special settlement, fake bullshit. Things that they had identified were that I was innocent, and they think that you have a problem with due process. That was one of the problems I was dealing with at the hospital, and the fact that there could be many ways you're impacted by due process at the hospital. One, all your due process rights when you're being forced. Well, let's see. You have a right to get out of the hospital, for example. You have a right to due process. You have a right to be able to get out somehow. And I had already been approved release. There's issues with treatment. Whoever gives a fuck about that type of shit, they weren't willing to come out and admit that. Oh, they also want you to get your own attorney and different shit. And this is while I'm getting assaulted by staff, and there was so many months of things going on, man. And it's an ultimate weapon and cover-up. And the fact that all these people would know the truth, they would have been in my mind, and they knew what my complaints were, that I'd also been hurt by the hospital, and that I'd only deteriorated, and that I was fine before, and they knew that I had photographic memory. They basically decoded all my thoughts, my brainwaves and function, and then they saw that I had all these fucking higher-end abilities, and they just watched me, and they saw me, like, with my cool memory and shit. And they think that, hey, maybe he was better off before. And they think that the hospital did that to me. They were basically in agreement. And so were the staff. But what I would be trying to do is get them exposed for fucking crimes by having the security video and audio checked out. Because I didn't give a fuck about any of these stupid things these fucking fags were doing. I believe that someone should have acted day one when I made reports of abuse to help me, and I wasn't in agreement with them. At all. I wasn't in agreement at all with their shit. I don't support people not going to prison for crimes. I don't support that type of shit. And I didn't accept anything that they were doing to try to manipulate me. So then they tried to murder me for going to the media. And while I was in between attorneys, because I also was filling my first attorney, I had to hire an attorney. I didn't want him to focus on the PSRB garbage. I wanted someone to do a lawsuit and check the security video, and I did buy my own attorney for 10 hours of work. And I didn't agree with what he was doing at all, because he was going to check the video only after really pushing for it. And I was not into that. I wanted someone who was going to do it faster. So I fired him and went, his name was David Denhardy. Okay, I truly felt that he was stealing my money. So as soon as I fired him, that's when the staff they moved me rooms right away, and then within maybe a week they used his weapon on me. And then that's where it says, like, you spy for the States Mayoral DMA, you spy for the CIA, and you're being set up to look psychotic. And I have calcium efflux, I have 170 pulse, 200 pulse. I'm convulsing my room from exposure to electromagnetism. And it was before this they were trying to trick me into saying I was suicidal, because apparently it was, if it was an emergency, they could move me out of the hospital or off the unit in what's called some type of private transfer. So that would be to an outside hospital or an outside place. And it was going to be done with DN Major from Disability Rights Oregon. And it was going to be done with people It was part of the settlement. I don't know what it was. But if you were to check the security video, you would hear Jeff Burkholz, and some of the staff outside my room. They would be talking about this. Okay. And it was just for me to hear it and then to act like I could do something with it. Oh. They were making it real easy for me, someone says. There was some rule exception to everything that they had found. And they called me in to talk to the Dr. Newton and Dr. Seibel just to try to get me to actually go along with this, but I didn't. One of their questions, out of the blue, is if I was feeling suicidal, and they were checking. Because they expected me to go with it, I could choose if I was suicidal or not. If I was suicidal, that means that I felt like nothing could be done at the hospital. I couldn't work with any of the staff and all that. And then if I wasn't, then that meant that I could work with all the staff and all that. And when I refused to say I'm suicidal, though, because I thought they were tricking me and setting me up, I said, and I wasn't really feeling like I could be honest with them. I thought they were trying to get me to admit something that was wrong. They could use it against me or something. And because they're technically the ones guilty of crime, what kind of stupid shit? Why would I have to go along with some type of stupid crap like that? I'm not playing games with these people, right? So then, and Dr. Newton was, he's expecting me to actually say that I'm suicidal. And then I say, but I wasn't. Right? And then he goes, oh, good. So you think that you could go over to 50G and you could go through the program and get out of here and all this. See, these were things being exposed. He knew the full plan. But at the same time, I was being set up to look psychotic, truly. So whatever was being said was shit. Okay? I'm telling you, no matter what I would have done, dude, these doctors were setting me up to look psychotic. And whatever I actually said, it was, there was nobody ever going to admit what they were doing unless I had someone on the outside coming and check on this dangerous shit. Okay? And, so they used the weapon on me because when I go back to my room, I'm probably actually hearing some of the first voices from this thing. They go, oh, why did you do that? She didn't. I was hearing stuff with this computer too. So this computer was, so basically I'd made a mistake. They were trying to communicate with me to try to get me to go along with this crap, I guess. And then okay, so there might have been a few things before the very first message was you're being set up to look psychotic and you spy for the Statesman Journal. Okay, so that was probably not the first one. And I've acknowledged this for a while, but I have no idea precisely what the very first few messages were. It was with sometime in July when this shit started, as far as I know, with actually them using it on me to communicate with me. And so they were trying to just give me this stuff in secret. That's what they were doing. What else? I can't remember too many other things. Most of it would be done through staff members. They would even have staff come by my room and sing songs. Do you believe in magic? See, they would actually be manipulating me with music and different crap. And that was Shirley. And it was because when I became so afraid of what was happening, I did sort of become suicidal. And so what they were doing was going to make it easy for me. And there was times where the surveillance was being used by Disability Rights Oregon and Deanna Major and people to try to see what was happening. And there was week-long, when Deanna Major goes on vacation for a week, she was actually being portrayed as being down at the hospital for a week, intimately involved with this. And the whole week was this operation when she was on vacation that I was dealing with. And it was wearing me out because I was getting afraid. I was getting fucking afraid of this. Everything that was happening on the unit, being spied on for the entire freaking week. And everything, I was being told the communications, okay? The staff members were out in the hallways then saying what was happening. And, like, it ends up going, so some comment leads up to, oh, they think he's stuck. So they changed. After they told me that there was going to be some settlement, they're going to make it easy. And Shirley comes right by my room and stands right there. They would be coming by, oh, do you believe in magic? And it was a song about, you see how upbeat that is? And then, it was them gonna not go evil on me. And then staff members then say, oh, well, know what? They think they changed their mind. They're not gonna help him. They think that he's just stuck. It was towards the end. And see how that rapid flying of emotions from one state to the next and how fearful that would make a person. But these things were being said out in the hall. And there's different, there was like months of this actually going back to the entire time I was dealing with this type of shit. But at this point, I had caught them on security equipment, right? I documented it all, and all this garbage was happening. And was I just being manipulated? One of my psychologists says that they call this mind control. So when they want you to hear things, you're being controlled. Yeah, I was being controlled. Did I also catch them in some type of serious crime, an illegal surveillance operation? And where there are abuses happening? Yeah. And were they seriously... Well, there were people being allowed to choose whether they wanted to help or not. And that's one of the things that Disciplinary Rights Oregon was down there doing. Whoever else was involved, I don't even know. Dion Major, there's so many events. I could replicate or put together most of this. I've never gotten a chance to. I've never gotten those day-to-day events, stuff going on between the staff, people from the outside, and illegal things happening. Okay? And that's the type of stuff that we'll see in the security video if it's ever found and looked at. And if we can't get the full security video at this point because they destroyed it, it's only because they destroyed it and obstructed justice. And there's parts of it I know will be available because the staff were investigators. They did beat me up. And there's going to be an ability to go and look at parts of their story, find out if it was true or not. Or did they frame me to beat myself up? Yeah. In their reports, I know that there's security video parts of this, but the staff come in my room and beat me up with their fists, and there's different things they're saying. Nobody cares about your rights. No one's going to help you. And they're going through the trash after I throw stuff out. And then they hand some stuff back to me to freak me out. They're trying to scare me on purpose, and then they're all laughing. And it's a letter that they got out of the trash. It's an envelope that I had thrown away. That had been all kind of tore up and written on, and then a bunch of stuff I tore up, and they put it inside the envelope. A staff member did it, and there's so many different things that were going on like that. And I got beat up, punched in the face with fists by Jeff Hudson, Brad, and Nurse R and Heather and Elizabeth, and they were all together in this, they were all setting me up. They were all part of this, and then I get beat up, spitting up blood everywhere and everything, and they suffocate me. He takes a towel and he suffocates my face, and he's pressing it into my face and burning everything up, and I'm putting the restraints, and everyone acknowledged it was Jeff Hudson. People are coming by and look at my swollen up, puffed up face. But guess what they did to cover it up? They put it all on me and say that I did 10 different staff get together and say I did this. How did I do it? That I was actually beating my head into a wall. How did I do that? That's crazy. If you look at the marks on my face, it looks like someone was punching me. And then they cause a bunch of burn marks, scuff marks from using a towel, on me with such force that they're pressing it down in my face and twisting my neck and head. And it was Jeff Hudson, as he's also covering my nose and my mouth and trying to suffocate me. And he was doing that on purpose, dude, because he just attacked me and assaulted me and was just punching me over and over, holding me down. I'm fully restrained on bed too. What he was doing, just punching me, and I didn't do nothing. And I had a lawful right to resist them too, because they were also there to assault me in the first place. And all that I tried to do is leave the room. That's not the first time I've been. I was also beat up by the same guy in 2004. He's got like 20 different cases of having abuse reported too at OIT. In 2004, he's one of the first staff, along with this guy named Chris and Kurt Hendricks, and there were a bunch of male staff, very violent fuckers, bullies. And I get there, one of the first things they do is they target me, and then Jeff Hudson slams me up against the wall and starts just hurting me, beating me up a little bit. And then Kurt Hendricks is helping him, and then when the nurse gets there, catches the two doing it, goes, "What's going on here?" They fucking both, all they had to do was put the blame on me. That's the type of shit that they would do. They knew how to get away with assault. I've got examples of other patients getting assaulted good like that too. And nobody would get in trouble no matter if anybody had been caught. Like, later on in 2011, I catch this guy named Joe, and Joe and this other guy, I can't remember the other dude's name at this point, but they bust up one patient's eye socket on purpose. They were being very aggressive towards him, and they were playing tricks on him with the dates and times on the food bags, and they tricked him into eating an old sandwich by putting in a new bag with a new date. We all saw it. Other inmates saw that. They take a pen and they're like, "Hey, I got an idea. Let's make him. I know how to make him eat that old sandwich. Let's just put it in a bag with a different date." And Joe's like, "Yeah, that's fucking brilliant. Let's do it." And they're picking on this dude named Tommy Smith. And then when Tommy Smith finds out that they actually did that, and they give it to him, because we tell him, "Hey, how was that sandwich? Any better than the old one?" Because guess what? They actually just took the old sandwich and put it in a new bag, dude. And he's like, "What?" And then he goes up to them, and then the two refuse to acknowledge it. And they're like, "Oh." And then the next day they're saying, "Oh, we're not going to talk about it." They just would refuse to apologize or acknowledge they did that. But after that, they put him in restraints. And then the two had hands-on with him, and then one of them trips him, not like on accident, but literally just decides to just push him forward and bust his face down to the ground. And they slam him down, and his eye socket's bloody as fuck, dude. OIT refused to check his security video. They don't even interview any of the dozens of witnesses. And they covered that shit up, and we all saw it. And they actually sent him a report back that they're not going to investigate it. I go, I call him up for his behalf. I say, "Hey, I was one of the witnesses that reported this. How the fuck did you not investigate this?" And anyway, meanwhile, after this event happens, the union reps come on the unit. Jeff Hudson's one of the cunts that does this, and he's giving Joe personal advice on how to avoid getting in trouble by lying. And I heard him talk about this outside of my room. He says, "Look, man, I'm a fucking pro at this. I know everything." And he's giving advice. I thought it was, if I remember most of it, it's been 2 years, and I was getting beat up with radiation as this was happening. This guy was telling him just not to admit it. If you don't admit anything, you can't get in trouble, man. And he said he claims to be a professional at all this, and that he knows all the ropes of the system and shit. And yeah, I believe that he was giving personal advice because he personally lied and covered up assaults himself before. He's done it so many times. He's a He's now the union president. He knows exactly what to fucking do to get out of trouble when he's beating patients up on purpose. And when his fellow buddy does it. And there's a bunch of jocks in that place, and they get off running to unit, just using force on patients. And they do that. You hear the damn buzzers go off all the time when you're in that fucking hospital, and you know that some patient's getting beat up or abused. And I've witnessed a fair share of them that I know that when a staff member's calling an alarm or something, that they triggered this themselves, and whatever's happening, it's a use of force. It's not an actual emergency, but it's a use of force being called on a patient. And in this particular facility, it's just the fact that they allow the use of force, and that allows the use of force, and it's what causes all the stress. It's the staff get off on doing it. All they got to do is make up a lie, or threatening, or anything that's going to justify it in the books, and then they could do whatever. Even lie about there being a threat. They lie. That's how far they go. And a lot of power tripping amongst the staff and the patients. It could be caused by being called out. If you witness some staff commit a crime or an injustice, and you call them out, and then they won't admit to it, boom. That's what causes the use of force right there, is them not wanting to admit it. And then bossing the person around, making them go to their room. They're like, it doesn't make any sense, and then they end up escalating it when the patient says, hey, why should I have to do this? You did all this shit. And then, boom, they're pounding the patient up and then putting them under restraints really fast. And that's how it usually works. Some people don't know that it doesn't require the patient to really do anything. It's just the staff wanting to put them into restraints or put hands on. And I've seen it get really bad. Some patients having broken wrists and broken ribs and broken elbows and broken shins. Oh yeah, I had a broken shin. I had a broken thumb. And the doctors there will help cover up how the injuries truly happened. If you say it was the staff doing it, deliberately twisting your wrist around or whatever, then what it happens is, it'll be the... Well, I've heard them say, oh, it's very hard to break that bone. And you'll be telling them what happened, and then you'll just deliberately ignore it. And then you'll see them openly thinking, oh, well, maybe you went like this, and you're somehow trying to figure out how you self-inflicted it. And I'm like, what? How could I swing and hit my wrist on a table when the staff were the ones that attacked me? They're the only ones that were on me doing anything. Or if the state police, lucky for me, I had 2 different people examine me. The first one was my regular scheduled examination. They found out I had blunt trauma in my nose after getting punched in my nose repeatedly. The state police are expert cover-uppers, so they come out after this assault. After the nurse practitioner confirms it was trauma, and there's blood all over the floor. Everyone sees the blood. The staff member had a history of beating patients up like this, punching them in the face, physical force being misused. And I witnessed 3 different times he did that in 2006. Okay? And then they call in Dr. Brooks, who frames it. After the first one finds out it's all trauma, that it was actually a sinus infection. I had no sinus infection at all. So she covers it up and says, oh, there was no injury. And that's how they do it. Boom. Call in one of their fucking doctors to say there was no injury. And that's all it takes to prevent an investigation. And that's what they do every fucking time. That's why no staff has ever gotten in trouble for assaulting anybody. Now, if you had an outside doctor who's not there at the hospital come in and look at you, you're going to get a way different result. And that's just because they're not going to lie. And you better hope that you get taken to the emergency room. Some doctor who's not one of theirs gets to look at you, because the doctors in the hospital cover everything up. And some of these doctors are outside doctors, but they're on contract. They come into from the outside, and they're doing shit at the hospital. They know the routine of covering up every injury and not pinning it on any staff and not raising suspicion.